Is homeschooling under attack? I'm Drea Humphrey with Rebel News, and beside me is Peter Stock, the president of the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, to give us more on that answer. Now, we're actually pulled outside of a homeschool BC home education conference that's taking place in Langley, BC, and I thought, I gotta talk to you because you said some really interesting things in your talk to the people. So your association helps parents, families advocate for homeschool freedom. So just quickly talk a little bit about that.
Yes, we've been in business for 35 years as a nonprofit, and during that time, we've seen life go from a place where homeschooling was essentially illegal in much of Canada to a place where it's now legal to homeschool in all 10 provinces and all 3 territories. But it's taken incredible fights in the courts of Canada, in legislatures across the provinces, and but now we do have that freedom. It does, even though we have the freedom, though, it doesn't mean it's easy all the time.
Right, we have that freedom, and it's been fascinating to learn about the history with that. But in some ways, it seems like that there are new restraints happening over in recent years on that freedom. Could you tell us some examples of things that raise concerns for the association that have happened in Canada?
Sure. So Quebec is a great example of this. The Quebec government in 2017, 2018 changed, and the CAQ came into power. We've seen other problems from that particular government in terms of restricting religious freedoms, but they actually cracked down pretty hard on homeschooling too, imposing all kinds of reporting requirements and even requiring homeschool students to write public school exams. That doesn't sound like a big deal. You'd say, well, why shouldn't they write an exam? But that requires them to use public school curriculum, which is often something that homeschool parents do not want to use. They have better curriculum that they've been using in their homeschools. And so to lower the standards or even have to teach their children things that they may not agree with that are contained in, let's say, the Quebec social studies curriculum, that's a real problem for a lot of parents.
And have there been even arrests associated with this?
Not in recent years, but up until 2017, homeschooling was in a very difficult place in Quebec, and parents often lived in fear that their children would be apprehended. In fact, it's still the case to this day in Quebec that if you're found to be in a place where you're not giving proper education to your kids, you're truant, etc., the enforcement mechanism there isn't a truant officer, it's actually Child Protection Services, and they will apprehend your children. That's the only option they have.
Wow, that just sounds crazy to me. Now, you said something in there about, what's the big deal if you have to write a test, and that homeschool families, they pick their curriculum and they like that for different reasons. But let's talk about what happened in Newfoundland when it came to having that freedom to say, this is what I think is a better standard of education for my child, or maybe even my special needs child.
Yeah, and that's a huge problem in Newfoundland, where the ministry there has decided that only a very small selection of curriculum is acceptable. It's the provincial curriculum and a few other publishers. We don't have a problem with the publishers they picked, but the problem is 95% of the excellent publishers that are also out there do not have their curriculum approved, and that's what a lot of families want to use. In fact, many people may not know this, but homeschoolers will often use different curriculum for, say, their math than their English, than other subjects. And so they use a variety of curriculum. And so to be restricted to just a few choices is something that is difficult for many families.
So recently I did a report on how a school that's been operating for, well over a decade, hundreds of students, an online learning school. So that's where you have parents who are teaching their kids in home, but they have support from an online school teacher who helps as well. That was just shut down by the NDP government, and it seemed very abrupt. And even now, it's been well over a month since the parents have found that out, and I am aware that many families are still displaced. What's going through your mind and the associations when you see that?
Yeah, it's quite concerning because we've seen this move from the NDP government over the last few years, where they're trying to constrict or restrict the ability of parents to find homeschooling options in the province through these independent schools. They're not allowing new independent schools. They're cutting the funding, and in this case, disturbingly, even eliminating the school. we're hopeful that in this particular case, a lot of those families will be able to find placement in other institutions or with other institutions. But it's a disturbing trend, and probably reflective of the attitude of this particular government in BC.
So that's a Christian home education learning school. Again, I did a report on that just to give a little bit of an update. They are trying to appeal. They're speaking with a lawyer to find out their options on that as well. But like I said, many families displaced. Now I homeschool a younger student, but I was fascinated when I sat in your talk about sort of the different avenues that homeschool parents can take as of now, as we are free to do so, that can get your kids sort of ahead if they're able to do that. I think a lot of people think, oh, homeschools, like they're just, I don't know, running around with no shoes on, and sometimes they are, but I'm not saying anything bad about that. But what would you say to people about what the possibilities are in homeschooling compared to public school?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much more flexibility. There's so much more opportunity to pursue the interests that a child or a family has. And that could be anything from, let's say a child is particularly athletic or particularly musical or artistic. They can spend extra time pursuing those particular interests and really dig deep and excel. And so you've got this great opportunity to not only be educated academically, but in every other way as well. And it's an opportunity for growth. It's an opportunity for families to enjoy one another, and our kids turn out well. So we're excited about that.
And what are some examples? I think your own kids experience this a little bit, where they're ending up doing sort of post-secondary courses at very young ages.
Yeah, so those possibilities exist too, and a lot of homeschool students who are at the high school level will start taking college or university type courses. They can do it online. They can do it from home, which is wonderful, and so that prepares them better for the post-secondary world once they get there. It also provides some additional pathways to get to that post-secondary world because they've achieved the credits perhaps they need to get in the door in the first place.
And so just ending on, why would someone want to come to your association to protect their rights?
Yeah, well, we've been doing it for 35 years, and sadly, what I have to say is that we're busier now than we've ever been. Despite the fact that homeschooling is legal across Canada, as I said, in all 10 provinces, all 3 territories, we still face challenges, families face challenges on a regular basis, and it could be from social service agencies, school boards, and many other government agencies. In fact, everything from the CRA to, even to being called for jury duty, quite frankly. There are many hindrances or obstacles or challenges that families can face, and we have a legal team that defends these families and protects their freedoms.
Does that include family disputes if there's a separation and one parent wants to homeschool, or?
We can give advice in various situations. We're not divorce lawyers, obviously, but we deal with a variety of family law issues that can impact homeschooling, and give advice that way, and sometimes give representation.
Well, there you have it, Peter Stock. There's more information on this association and some of the other reports we've done related to homeschooling in the written article for this report. Treya Humphrey for Rebel News. At Rebel News, we bring you a plethora of reports that are concerning many Canadians today, and a lot of that has had to do with the education system. You can find our many reports about the indoctrination happening there and how to fight against it at stopclassroomgrooming.com.